the racial bias didn't really like start to dissolve until we were in like high school, college kind of thing, right? Like it was like this really active, I don't know, push towards, neutralize, kind of like neutralizing all like social expectations between the races that are in America, because it got to a point where it was too much of a mixing pot for everyone to think that this was still a white nation, basically.
Well, right. With respect to this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion thing, though, I would argue that there are those who still believe, even if they're not white, that one of the characteristics of a nation is a race. And importantly, I would say that having your own cultural icons as far as what you consider to be the flag of the nation and the national anthem of the nation, that's considered a, representative part of your nation, that if you're going to play, for example, two different so-called national anthems at one of the biggest events in the nation, consider the Super Bowl, being considered such a big event in America, it's obviously watched by dozens of millions, if not 100 million plus people. And, not all of us care about it, but it is what it is, right? So at that event, apparently, since 2021, the Black national anthem, known as Lift Every Voice and Sing, has been performed since then. And it has been performed in tandem with the national anthem of mainstream America, Star Spangled Banner, which maybe you could therefore point out as the kind of white national anthem that was made in the 1800s. So this other national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, apparently is a hymn written also in the late 1800s, adopted by the NAACP and used as a rallying cry during the civil rights movement. So there are those who are in this country who see their own nationhood as coming out of the civil rights movement and have their own national anthem. That's kind of a racial solidarity that points out the fact that country is race, I guess, or at least that once we get so diverse that we feel like we're not a majority anymore, we try to break off into our own nationalistic groups founded upon race, perhaps even having separated, kind of segregated, graduation ceremonies at universities. This is also kind of a thing that's popped up as millennials or as Gen Zers over the last few years have been in college. Yes, separate graduation ceremonies by race. And of course there's a mainstream graduation ceremony for all races, and it's not like universities are founded on a certain race usually. There can be historically black colleges and universities, right? But it's not like you are not allowed to go there if you're not a certain race. It's just historically been that way, right? So
I thought you were saying they're going back to that. I was like, oh boy.
Well, effectively, in some places, they are going back to it. It's just that it's not like mandated. It's kind of this thing where those who want to have a separate one do have that in certain cases. And so that's why, in my opinion, there's been such a pushback against this DEI notion that we cannot be one nation, I guess. It's like, how do you square things? Like, I think I still see the naturalistic definition of a nation as being based upon a race. Like, I see the argument that we have to get with the program of that we are here. If we're going to decide that we have birthright citizenship and everyone is part of the nation by default, then we kind of have an unworkable situation, because those who don't want to be minorities, which is effectively everyone, because nobody actually likes being a minority, in my opinion, we break off into our separate groups wherein which we are still majorities within those minorities. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I guess a nation should be unified, and what is the source of unification? I guess that is the debate. But humans are organically inclined to want to categorize based on skin color, and that's just some naturalistic instinct, right? It's like, oh, that thing's darker than me, or that thing's a lot lighter than me, or like that thing's purple, and it's like somehow we've combined the two concepts and kind of latched on to as humans we've sort of highlighted some sort of really natural organic trait as the indicator as to what, on a very high level social thing, concept, structure, like makes us a nation, right? And it's like, well, the two things don't go hand in hand, but we're never going to realize that probably. It's like you can't take some natural thing that you were born with that you can't have any control over to try to unify a set of organisms that all think differently on different levels about the same topic. And even if you said, in my opinion, even if you got all the things that looked alike on the surface together, it doesn't mean they all think. Right. It doesn't mean they have to think the same way either. Right. It doesn't automatically make that entire society more unified.
Right. It doesn't automatically make that society great again.
Right. It doesn't automatically make that society great again. Exactly.
But is it worth trying is the question. And
is it worth
those within certain sects, and it's like it goes deeper than just skin color though, right? And it's like not supposedly the case in terms of polite society, because we have to pretend that no speciation event can, happen at a deeper level than Homo sapiens, that we cannot consider subspecies of Homo sapiens, not in terms of lower species, subspecies, but just more specific species, that we're all subspecies of whatever species we're a part of, right? We're all subspecies of the human race. And there used to be other humans, and Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and the Neanderthals, right? So there are other races or other species of humans, but we're all this part of one race of human that can all reproduce with each other for the most part, but which may constitute separate subspecies in terms of types of diseases we might have, and perhaps other physical characteristics that, as someone who does not have, for example, the hair characteristics of a certain type, I would be found as being extremely awkward, walking into a certain type of, salon, a certain type of barber. Although personally, I just cut my own hair, so I would never have that issue anyway. But there are certain types of shops where they're catered to specific nationalities, and it happens to be totally fine as a business because they are catered to who they consider to be their target audience, who they consider to be their people, right? Meaning, maybe it's not illegal to walk in if you don't have a certain type of hair, but you'll just be looked at as if you're crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. And you're not going to want to go there because you feel like that place doesn't know your hairstyle or your hair type as well in order to give you the best type of cut. Right. So I guess that's what they say about a lot of black barbers. But anyway.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go to one. I'll pay good money for one if I had that kind of hair. But unfortunately, I don't either. I have very manageable hair. But anyway.
Yeah.